Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new Thursday. Welcome to the all new ThyGap podcast. This is me being Brute, and with me is
Bogas Nug.
Bogus. Welcome to the episode once again.
Brot, my friend. How nice to see you.
So, Bogus, let's get back to business.
Brot, this week our episode is on detachment. It's not easy.
It's not easy being detached to things, and we all know it, but we don't quite understand it. So one of the things that we are doing, and I've been listening to our own podcast, which you don't do, Bogus, is we don't talk about what it means, what it is. No, I think, go a level lower or level deeper and understand the nature of that particular quality. And that's what we're going to do here also.
Right. So I think we don't need to go into the dictionary meaning of the word detachment.
Yeah. I think people have dictionaries on their phone. They can do it. We don't have to do their job.
But from my perspective, the context, like where I'm coming from, as far as detachment is concerned, is to say that I'm talking about detachment in a sense of degree of detachment. You know, I'm not talking about 100% detachment. I'm talking about a degree of detachment, maybe 30%, 40%, depending on the situation.
Right.
That's about it. What about you, bro?
Well, good job on the definition,
Thank
or
you.
like the version of your.
I don't care. I'm detached from it.
Yeah.
I don't care about
What's in the
compliments.
past is past. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to quote, very unlike me, by the way, Bogus, and you might be surprised. I want to paraphrase a stanza from Bhagavad Gita, which explains detachment.
And how is this unlike you exactly?
Because I don't come across as a person who reads Bhagavad Gita.
You don't come across as anything to anyone, bro.
Exactly.
This is an audio
So
podcast.
hence I was like, don't be surprised. Okay. Anyways, don't digress. Let me have my moment here.
Oh, sure, please.
Okay. So in Bhagavad Gita, it basically says detachment doesn't mean you don't own anything. You know, detachment actually means that you own things, but you're not attached to it.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of profoundness in that phrase, because I think that gives a very good perspective about what exactly we need to understand about detachment.
Yeah, because when you're coming from that context, right, the context that you took with that quote,
Yeah.
people can automatically think, if you're talking about detachment, oh, you're talking about no family life,
Yeah.
no earthly attachments,
Right.
you know, a life of,
Possessions. I think it's no earthly possessions.
no earthly possessions,
Yeah.
a life of a monk.
Yeah.
Basically, but what it's actually saying is you can actually be attached to those things, but don't
Own.
be entangled,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Okay.
completely.
Right.
That's what they're trying to
Yeah.
get. I think they even use the word entangled in there.
I'm not quite sure exactly.
I mean, the version, the
verbatim.
translations
yeah,
differ.
it
So,
differs. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to put it as simple as I could put it in my understanding.
Yeah.
And that truly means detachment. Unfortunately, what we seem to understand, or what we seem to get out of that word, is don't have materialistic possessions.
Yeah, it is 0 or 100.
Yeah,
You know,
it's black or white.
in between. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have anything. Don't have fancy phones, or don't wear fancy clothes,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
It's either IT job or Agora.
Yeah, it's it's Akhanda versus fucking Karan Johar's movies.
Yeah.
So that's not what we are talking about.
Yep.
And to just set the premise right, this is what we mean by detachment. It is not to not own anything, but it is to know how to deal with what you own and not get affected by it.
Yeah.
So that's what we mean by it.
Or how
right?
to manage your attachments, basically. Yeah.
Now, I mean, the sky is the limit of how we can,
So
make it suitable to ourselves.
What is it that makes this not easy?
It's right there. The writing's on the wall. I mean, we give so much of importance to what makes us from the outside rather than what makes us from the inside. And that's the first huge contradiction that we are a victim of. I wouldn't say victim of, but we kind of fall in that category where we are done by, I need to look. The concept of power of dressing
Right.
I feel is misconstrued to us, right?
How?
Because the example that I can give is the whole Vivekananda story when he went to London and people were mocking him that, look at this guy wearing a robe, blah blah blah, and why don't you wear like a suit like the rest of the people?
There's
like
also the
civilized
story
people.
of the train and the suitcase, right? That was also because of the dressing and appearance as well, that his suitcase was thrown out.
Yeah. So in that, I don't know how many people are aware of this story. It's a very famous story where the Englishmen were making fun of him for the way he was looking, and the passing comments that, why don't you be civilized like us, etc., etc.
Right.
And Vivekananda being Vivekananda,
Yeah.
he turns back to them and says, from where I come, we judge a person's character by not how he's dressed, but how he is as a person. And that is what I mean, that the power of dressing and all these concepts, right, kind of lead us into a wrong direction. Not intentionally, but the way it is put across in the scenarios it is explained in.
It's a misinterpretation.
It's a
Right?
it's a misinterpretation.
Yeah.
And that is what I mean, that we give a lot of importance to our external appearance.
I think there's a good reason behind doing something like that, but to get lost in it is what you're talking about. Like to give it more credibility than it deserves.
Right. And which is why, what you said, that this is misinterpreted, is apt, because we don't quite understand that. And what happens because of that is, the more and more we are focusing on it, the more and more time we invest in it, the more and more it becomes an emotional part of us.
Right.
And anything emotional has a certain part of it which gets attached to us, because the moment you're connected to something emotionally, you're gone. It creates this line of dependencies, like sentiments, like nostalgia, like all these things. So now you're not ready to let go of it because, this reminds me of those good times, whatever. So
you derive your sense of identity from it, right? It becomes too entangled with your ego.
Yeah.
Where you feel like if this goes down, then basically I go down.
Yeah.
Because I'm nothing but my ego.
Yeah.
There's no concept of something being beyond that.
Right. So it doesn't paint the whole picture, basically. Which is what I mean by the fact that we are so entangled about what is making us from the outside than what we are from the inside.
Right.
And which is why it is not easy to detach from certain things. That is one primary reason, I think, why it gets so tricky for us to be detached to things.
Can I give you another reason? I have another theory.
Okay.
I think one of our biggest failings is that we forget about death. It doesn't play in our mind. I mean, it plays in our subconscious mind for sure. But consciously, we don't always recognize that death is just around the corner. Like literally, I may be thinking about, 5 years down the line, I might buy a house and all that. But tomorrow you could get squashed like a bug.
Right.
So that forgetfulness that we have, that short-term amnesia that we get, it's what causes us to get so entangled that everything now in my life revolves around this circumstance that I'm stuck in.
Right.
And it is life or death, literally. Like if it goes down, if I lose my reputation, why should I live? Like I'll just kill myself.
Right.
Because the concept of death being permanent, no matter what, the circumstance that you're stuck in, whether you come out of it a winner or you come out of it a loser,
right,
you're going to be ash.
Right.
At the end of the day.
We all are in the same coffin.
Exactly. Right. And it's what Alexander realized. And he asked his people to bury him with his hands pointing upwards.
Pointing out of the grave.
Yeah, pointing at the sky to signify that even though I did all this top-to-pash bullshit, I'm still going back empty-handed.
Right.
So when you really realize that and when you really absorb the meaning in that, then what is the point of being entangled so much? 60%, 80%, 90% entangled in it. When no matter what happens, you die. You're just a passenger.
Yeah, but okay, I'll be the devil's advocate. If you look at it in that perspective, nothing has a point, right? It's very easy for you to lose the purpose of living.
Yeah.
If you start thinking that, someday I'm going to die anyway, so why even bother about it? So it brings a lot of chaos, lack of word. It brings absolute no drive.
Right.
So, which is why I think there's a good reason why we forget that we die someday. Because if we realize it absolutely, then we might be easily, again, it depends on the aptitude that we have. And
no, whatever you described is just another trap of misinterpretation, just like how we were talking about the earlier misinterpretation of what detachment is, this is another trap of misinterpretation where if you conclude that, okay, this means that nothing really matters and I'm just going to...
No, I'm not saying this means.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, you might come to that point.
You might,
You might come to that point that, there's no purpose.
Yeah.
If we keep telling ourselves in a way that, at the end of the day, we're going to die.
And
fuck it.
This is where Eastern thought brings in the karmic angle, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe the only thing that you're carrying forward with you is the actions and the energy that you put out.
Right.
And that is going to have a domino effect on its own.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what you need to focus on, which goes back to the principles, the character.
Yeah. We are digressing, but that...
No, these are other episodes that we've already covered. Subscribe and share.
Good plug, good
Yeah.
plug, spiking it up.
But it's going back to the principle.
Right.
Those are the things that matter. So maybe your attachment could be a little bit more.
I think you need to have an eligibility to truly understand the importance of death.
Yeah.
I strongly believe that. If you go in with a half-baked understanding of life, then you will have a half-baked understanding of death, and which will only be oversimplified for you and say like, okay, fine, or fuck it, there's no purpose to this life. I'm anyhow going to die. So what's the big deal? Which is why I kind of stay away from it until and unless like it is put in the right context.
Okay.
So but I get your point. What you say is also true, that we forget of the fact that, okay, this is going to end someday. The show is going to stop. So I rather not get too attached to it, which is fair.
And
right?
the fact that in previous episodes, we covered how you're never going to get all the answers.
We're going to plug all the 22 episodes.
I mean, this is just...
Why not?
Why not?
Why not? We are not attached.
Yeah.
We'll throw it there.
Yeah, we don't care. Subscribe or share.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Whichever you like.
So
For all you care, participate.
it then begs the question that if this is not the interpretation that's taken, or if this is not the reason, then what else could it be that makes it so hard or not easy to be detached? What is pulling people in, sucking them into that entanglement?
Okay, let us kind of try to break it down a little, right? There are multiple concepts of attachment so for us to understand what we have to be detached from. So there are people that we get attached to.
Yep.
Then there are materialistic possessions that we get attached to. Then there are memories. I think it's the toughest attachment, right?
Yeah.
Like nostalgia, like childhood memories. Blah, blah, blah.
Perception is a
Perception.
huge one.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm bucketing all of them in memories, right? So broadly, if we take
No, I
these,
mean perception of other people, the perception they have.
oh
of
yeah,
you.
judgments. Correct. Yeah, perceptions. So there are multiple things that we get attached to, and we feel that these attachments, like you said, right? These attachments make me, right? They build my intellect. They build my persona. They build my perception for other people, right? And I think that's the trap. When we start giving them the value, then our actions, our behavior, our learnings, which is when it gets very tricky to get detached to these things. Because now our driving forces are these factors.
Right.
What is my background? What is my name? The most that I've found very fascinating is, have you ever mispronounced somebody's name and they got really offended?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever misspelled somebody's name and they got really affected?
Yes.
And that amuses me. What's in a name? I mean, how did it change my life? Just because one random person who I just met like 10 minutes back just called me with a completely different pronunciation.
Yeah, in my own personal case, I would still correct them, but I would not be offended by it.
I'm not talking about you correcting.
So it
Obviously,
is-
you will correct them.
We're talking about degrees again. It is
Right.
important enough for me to politely just correct them and say, my name is actually this.
Yeah.
But to get
It's
offended
Noog.
and to
It's not
take...
Nook.
Yeah, it's Noog. But to get offended and take insult as
Yeah.
if there was some malicious intent,
Yeah.
from that
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
That's... Yeah.
And these are the things, right?
Yeah.
And which is where I feel like, let's not be so attached. You make fun of it and then move on, or correct them and move on, whichever suits you.
Right.
Whatever suits you in that situation.
Right.
Again, there's a lot of variables in it. Depends on how you like that person or hate that person, etc., etc. So many things. But these are so elementary in nature. And from the bigger picture, none of these make any impact. None of these things influence your journey of life in any major way.
Yeah.
Like a death in somebody's family, yes, I agree. Like, it's not easy to deal with it. So I agree. It gets very tricky, very difficult for you to like absorb it, comprehend it, and then move on. It will take some time.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you need to have it in the back of your head that I can be detached to this. I can kind of move on from this. And it only will happen when you realize that this is where it can come to me for. Like, this is all the time that I had to spend with a particular thing.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the best examples that I can give is, and which I think affects a lot of people, is their first pets.
Right.
You have them when you are like very young, and then they grow into your adulthood, your early adulthood, and then they move on. And it is a huge shock. Like, there's a void in your life, right? Because the pet becomes your daily routine.
Yeah,
it becomes a
yeah.
part of your,
Absolutely.
functioning, etc. And suddenly that is taken away, and you're cut loose. You have no idea how to do it. And that is when I realized, rather, in my personal life, when I lost my first pet, it took me a lot of time to like get my head around it and say, okay, it's not happening. There is no miracle. There is no magic door, from where they come back, where life is all happy, hunky-dory. Which is when I started seeing, maybe it has changed me for life. I don't know. I can't
In
really
your
say.
case, did your pet live out the average lifespan, or
Yeah,
was
yeah,
it short?
yeah. It was probably a year or two here and there, but
Thereabouts.
Okay. But it's never enough, right?
I'm just saying, if it is...
I mean, there is no rationale that you can build.
If it is really cut short, like even for an average pet's life span, then again, I can understand, how that can be a little bit more of a tougher thing to get over.
See, the problem with attachment is it's never enough.
Yeah, it's never,
Like your first girlfriend. Like no matter how long the relationship lasted.
It's coming down now to people cloning their pets to get over this.
There's so many things people are doing to like overcome this nonsense, but I think you're disturbing the nature. And
even though it's really expensive,
like
$80,000, $90,000, they're still doing it.
The rich people in the world, and rich people can afford to have attachments. I think there one of the reasons why detachment is important, because you can't afford every attachment after a point. It has a price tag that you can pay, and puts you more into depression, saying that fuck, I'm so poor, I can't even afford an attachment. So, but no, it's serious, not a joke. But you get the point, right? I think the thing with attachment is it takes a lot out of you. We don't realize it until and unless that attachment is taken away from you.
Yeah.
You realize post being detached in literal sense.
This is another thing we talked about, right? Like we always cry about people when they're gone.
Yeah.
Or cry about,
losing
someone.
Right.
But while they're there, we never really take the time to let them know.
Oh, that's
always taken for granted.
Yeah, it's like grandparents are always there.
Yeah.
And it's a very delusional state we are in, right?
Yeah.
And that's what attachments do to you, and which is why it's very difficult for you to be detached to something, especially when you're in such close proximity to those things every day. Which is why it's not easy at all to inculcate detachment in the true sense, right? And you can have your own definition to it as to, because it's a magnitude, it's a scale.
Right.
You decide how attached or detached you want to be, as long as you can control it.
Here's another example in the corporate sphere as well. In my own case, my first job, there was a situation where I felt wronged, by the people above me. And I went into a phase of just reacting and being in that state of frustration, and things became toxic. Like I was not able to move on from that. And even though someone actually was wise enough to tell me, you're actually doing more damage to yourself if you continue in this trend.
Right.
Rather than that, if you just moved on and play this smartly, you can actually recover without much collateral.
Damage,
without much collateral. And I should have listened to them, but I just kept going, heat of the emotion. You're, young,
adrenaline,
first job. You're still in an idealistic frame of mind.
Yeah.
How can this injustice happen in this world?
This is not the world I imagined it would be.
And
Russia.
So, it was all that rebel without a cause kind of thing, or without a pause. I was just going on and on. And then I did actually burn a few more fires, and I did actually damage my own career prospects.
Right.
To an extent where I realized I have to quit this job now and I have to start with a blank slate elsewhere. Because whatever damage was there to do, I did it.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be salvaged from this now.
Right.
And then I realized I really shouldn't have acted out. I really shouldn't have been so attached to that.
Right.
People are being wronged all the time.
Yeah.
You just have to course correct. You have to minimize the impact of what they did.
Yeah.
So you have to focus your energy towards that now. It's all again attachment.
And world will be a better place if you can learn the art of detachment. That's what I feel. I mean, the world can be a better place because of multiple reasons, but this is also one of the reasons which I feel can really play a part, because if you look at it like at a micro level, the most inconsequential things are the ones we get most attached to. Starting from, this is my car, only I will drive.
Yeah.
Fair enough. There is an economic impact if a proper guy doesn't drive it, and whatever. Fair enough. Pride, you get attached to your delusional value of yourself.
Yeah, you start getting into pissing contests.
Right.
Like status checks.
Getting attached to, I know it's controversial, but getting attached to family. What I feel is, and I'm once again I'm reiterating, this can be very controversial. What I genuinely feel is we have to at some point realize that a family is made of individuals of independent potential and their own way of life. That if somebody says something wrong about your family, we take too much pride in it. Somebody like makes fun of your surname, makes fun of your uncle or your father, and we kind of like get all frustrated, or like we get so restless that okay, now I have to stand up for them and on their behalf and like kind of retaliate. Like, no, take it easy. Whatever people will say will not change the reality of your family.
Exactly.
Okay, so you can be detached to the fact that it's like the whole factionism movies, right? Oh, he killed my son, I'm going to kill his son and then his son's son, and like this is revenge mechanism that keeps working.
It makes no sense. If he kills your son, you kill him.
Yeah.
Not his son.
Yeah, his son.
You kill him.
Yeah, it's like sadism.
You make the son watch.
Like make his son kill you later on. That's the second story. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like I feel all these things, we have to like have like an open mind and approach this in a very.
Bro, can I just say something? Just a note. If something is going to be controversial, don't keep rubbing into it, saying that this is going to be controversial.
Yeah, this is like...
Maybe you just don't mention that part and just say your thing, Maybe people won't notice,
Yeah, I know. Brushing it under the carpet.
Yeah.
It's not a controversial thing.
It's not at all.
It's not at all a controversial thing. Your families
people
are
say
important.
This all the time.
Like families are fucking important. In fact, you die for your family, bitch.
Yeah.
But... It's not controversial at all.
Not at all.
No, especially with, from the cultures that we come from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guru Deva
Bhava. But as you were saying?
Yeah. So that is the problem. Not problem, but that is where I feel that we got to fill that gap.
No, I agree with your absolutely uncontroversial point.
Yeah.
That you just made.
I don't smell anything here. There's
the
no
point
smoke.
was as bland as white spaghetti. Or white pasta.
Right.
So it's all good.
It's all good.
And I agree with it.
Yeah.
But that needs to be there. Someone saying it doesn't make it true.
True. Exactly.
That's not a master wizard casting spells.
Right.
That is just going to happen.
Right. All the intelligence we have, and then we apply it to something so inconsequential, and then start dealing with it in a literal sense.
Yeah.
Happens because we get attached to something.
I'm not discounting it to say that you should not be pissed off. You should not retaliate. Take your time.
Yeah. Plan it out.
Yeah. Choose.
Catch him in the dark street.
The time and place, and then do it. But in the right degree also. Don't go overboard. Don't kill his son. Because he said something.
Yeah. Never. Because then it's too messy. The hierarchy goes haywire.
Then his sister will plan something against your family.
Yeah. Then sister will marry you and like everybody gets
entanglement.
confused.
This is entanglement.
Exactly. Like so that's why it's not easy.
Yeah. And that's why it's important.
One of the reasons why it's not easy is it's not controversial at all.
Absolutely uncontroversial.
Uncontroversial stuff, not at all. I have no idea what we're talking about.
Bland as French food. Bonjour. Oui, monsieur.
As clean
Merci
as
beaucoup.
a boiled potato.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, bro, why is it important?
So, because the reason why it's important is first and foremost is not controversial.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
That's the most important point.
Most important point.
Yes.
Right? And whatever is not controversial is automatically important.
Yep.
Right? Because there's nothing called negative publicity.
Nopes.
Right? Fox News, CNN, hashtag. And stuff like that. So on and so on.
Yeah.
Spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is it
important?
Why is it important? For the aforementioned reasons.
We'd like to categorically state.
Yeah, we want to categorically categorize the reasons why it is important.
That all people are beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we embrace diversity. And we include diversity.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, gender equality.
Oh, yes, of course.
Has to be.
Yeah.
Right?
We can't get too attached to our own gender.
Right. And right to output.
Yes.
Obviously. Right to outcome. Right. So... Never thought this would go this way, but
You're the one who took it there, but I keep telling you, if it's not controversial, don't say it's controversial.
okay. I'm not saying
So
it's
it is
controversial.
important because
They try to kill my father.
another uncontroversial statement.
Yes.
It's important because I think we don't pay attention to the amount of mental bandwidth and the amount of energy that this saps out.
Yeah.
If you're entangled and if you're stuck in that trap, every small thing is like the biggest disaster for you.
Yeah.
Imagine living that life.
Yeah.
Where everything happening to you is a catastrophe, it's a disaster, it's an apocalypse. Like, come on.
A part of me died.
Yeah.
We go to that level.
I mean, we have to be able to call a spade a spade,
At some point.
At some point.
I'm not saying from the word go.
Yeah.
If you can do that, then it's like the best case
thing.
scenario.
But it comes with practice only.
Yeah. So at some point you gotta like call a spade, which is what makes you live in the black and white, in the monochrome. Because we often keep falling in the gray area so much that we don't quite know where to go. And being detached to things at a certain level helps you be in that black and white.
Right.
And it's a much better place for you. I'm not saying like for everyone.
Clarity.
Yeah, you have the clarity, you have your mind share intact, which is like if you have to like give the most importance to any asset, that would be your mind share, according to me. That you should give that importance, that I have my mind share with me, I know where I want to spend it. So it's a very important currency, right? So detachment helps you to achieve that.
Yeah.
Achieve your own currency. It helps you to build your own mindshare currency, which is why I feel it's extremely important. I also say the downside of it. It's kind of like integrity, where it can cause a lot of problem for people around you. Obviously, when you're detached, when you start experiencing it, you'll start liking it. It's like being lonely.
Yeah, just look at how people react when someone is too clingy.
Yeah.
Look at how they treat them.
Right.
That just
kick
tells
you on the boot.
Yeah.
So being detached can also have the other side of the effect, where people are like, oh, how come you're not getting excited with anything? Or why like there's no surprise party that can get you surprised.
Yeah.
There is no, amount of things that can get you excited, because you start realizing that, I want it, I have it, now that's about it.
Yeah. And the other aspect of this is something that we already covered in a special episode: loneliness versus solitude.
Yeah.
The fact that the other thing that we have to realize, along with the nature of death and how our lives revolve around death, and the pattern of death basically, is the fact that no matter how many people you're around, no matter how many people you're entangled with, to some extent, all of us are lonely.
Right.
All of us are walking our own path, living our own life. There is some corner of our life that nobody else has access to.
Right.
So when that's the case, if it's important to be detached to some extent, because if you get detached to some extent, you have more mental bandwidth to process this aspect of your life,
right,
where it requires you to introspect, like you said. The problem with introspection is, at the beginning of introspection, you need to be used to silence.
Yeah.
And silence can be a really scary, intimidating thing to process in the beginning. But it's only when we go through that, when we start introspecting more, and that really teaches us how much unnecessary weightage we were placing to the external perception and external
the
things,
noise,
like you said.
Yeah.
So it gets you to start that journey inward.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And like, the best part about the fact which you said that, everybody is lonely and walking their own path
to some
of life.
degree, yeah.
The simplest way, I don't remember who told me this. It was on the same line, saying that, nobody's going to come and help you.
Yeah.
You got to be self-reliant, blah, blah, blah. And the way they summed it up was, there's only one pair of legs that a pair of shoes can accommodate. So remember, when you wear those pair of shoes, it's your legs that are walking, and nobody else can make the shoes walk apart from you. So it's a very, very weird, I'm paraphrasing that analogy. It was pretty long, but it makes so much of sense, right? Like, you have to keep moving on. If you take the concept of life as a journey, you just can't get attached to one scenery because it's extremely beautiful. You don't know what you're going to miss out tomorrow.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to miss out on the next turn. You might get something better. You might go to a vantage point, see a better sunrise or whatever. So, which is why the detachment aspect is really important. You should know the time has passed and I enjoyed as long as it was there. Now I got to go to the next stop. And you will find something exciting, obviously. If you're in the right frame of mind, or if you're looking out for the right things and the right reasons, you're bound to have have something better at every single stop, right?
Yeah.
The other thing about detachment, which I feel makes it extremely important as a trait, is detachment can allow you to enjoy both sides of the coin. Whether you win or you lose, if you're able to detach yourself from
the outcome,
from the outcome of that moment, it will help you enjoy it, And this is something that you observe in a lot of successful people, that whether they win or lose, it doesn't really impact them. It doesn't really affect them as a person.
Yeah.
And that's what also, again, that kind of helps you realize your potential. If you're able to do that, I think, again, there are many qualities for it, but detachment plays a very important role in enabling you to do so.
Yep.
If you don't detach yourself with the outcome, then you're not moving to the next stop. Then you're not able to experience the next thing.
Yeah.
So which leads to so many things, right? Like, like you said, invest all the important resources like energy, emotional energy and all that in the wrong thing, in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And that can zap you out.
Yeah, in parting, I'd just like to suggest a very famous poem by Rudyard Kipling, the guy who wrote Jungle Book.
Jungle Book, yes.
There's a poem called If, and I think it, in a poem form, in a very concise way, it touches on so many things that we talked about, and maybe a few other episodes also. Subscribe and share.
Uncontroversially yours.
Yeah. But bro, yes, for all those reasons aforementioned,
the aforementioned reasons categorically placed,
categorically mentioned, is why detachment is not easy.
It's not easy because they try to kill your father, and it's completely not controversial.
999.
Okay. You're not going anywhere without following us on our socials. Instagram @_ThyGap, Twitter @ThyGap, and Facebook ThyGap it is. Or why not write email to us, mindthygap@gmail.com. For other people who only use Apple, you can also give us a rating and leave a comment on our ThyGap podcast. Because you know what all doctors say, ThyGap podcast. Subscribe and share.